So this was the first one. I started using fellow animals rather than other animals. Conversation with nephew when he referred to a roast he was about to have, and I asked who he was going to eat. And so that's an interesting one. You know, what and the who.
The who language is really powerful, and I think that's actually within the animals movement something we often, once people kind of connect on not calling them it, still calling that and which in some context, when who is probably a stronger alternative.
What do you think of pre-vegan?
I've used that myself. I think I've shifted towards thinking of them in my heads as pre-vegans, because I guess if you're on the street and say, oh, you're a pre-vegan, I mean, you probably get different reactions, but I think some people might feel like their back's up against the wall. It's like, no, I'm not going to do the vegan thing, you know? So vegan curious kind of invites them in versus kind of telling them where they're going. But I think absolutely, let's try these things. It could work for a lot of audiences.
It can't be as good as carnage, though, can it? You carnage.
I was thinking, what about corpse munchers? My favorite, right?
Oh yeah. That in the 1990s, that was really popular in the movement. You know, corpse munchers.
Yeah. Vegetarian claim, though, right?
Philip also said about this issue of the term lifestyle. Thinks it's being co-opted, as everything is, of course, within a capitalist system. But what do you think of that?
I've moved away from lifestyle myself because I think perhaps the strongest point for me is also, if we think of other lifestyles, like it's usually associated with a type of music or maybe fashion. And I don't like to think of my philosophy of you know, my view of our fellow animals as a jacket I might take on, put on and take off. So that's where lifestyle language doesn't really resonate for me. But I think as a broader point, because there's so many language considerations, I like to think of them as kind of primary and secondary language concerns. The primary ones are like not calling our fellow animals it and stuff like that. And then the ones that I'm like, maybe a bad interpretation, but maybe not, those I kind of put in the secondary bucket. So I might put the lifestyle concern in the secondary language concerns bucket, but I'd still probably swerve it myself.
What about dehumanizing, de-individualizing, and there's also depersonalizing as well? So
yeah, maybe just as a general point, this is a good example of where the Facebook group Unlearning Species Languages really helped me, because that was a post there a couple of years ago, and another alternative that was suggested was depersonifying, because it's interesting, if we're talking about dehumanizing a human, what are we actually doing? We're making them a quote animal. So that's where dehumanizing, I think, is really language we should at least consider alternatives for. And de-individualizing, I like. I think it's definitely stronger than dehumanizing from a fellow animal perspective.